Whether you rest your eyes on a mountain sunset while stuck in rush hour traffic, or spend a week camping in the backcountry, you know that wild areas are at the heart of what makes Virginia a special place to live. Virginians treasure their rich natural heritage, and many concerned citizens are taking a stand to preserve it for generations to come. A broad coalition of people who love Virginia's forests, outdoors enthusiasts, conservationists, businesses, churches, and civic groups across the Commonwealth have identified 130 unique areas as Virginia Mountain Treasures. Rare, one-of-a-kind places scattered throughout the George Washington and Jefferson National Forests, cherished for their intrinsic value and, like all that we treasure, in need of our care and protection. Chances are one is just a short trip from your doorstep. Virginia's 130 mountain treasures, some large, some small, are some of the last roadless areas in our national forests, the last remaining places where we can hear only the sounds of the wild, see only the sights of the natural world. These unique areas are home to uncommon or vanishing treasures, such as pristine creeks and streams, rare and endangered plants and animals, majestic old-growth forests, and breathtaking, unspoiled landscapes. They are also prime locations for Virginians and visitors to enjoy backcountry recreation, ecotourism, birding, hunting, and fishing. After decades of intense development, these irreplaceable treasures are the most intact wild areas we have left. They need dedicated citizens devoted to defending and preserving them, for there are no other places like them on Earth. Virginia Mountain Treasures, our legacy to future generations, precious fragments of wildness in the midst of an increasingly industrialized landscape.
When I was a boy back before World War II, my father took me to the top of Apple Orchard Mountain to see the spring warbler migration and the spectacular rhododendron groves. I remember his indignation when these lovely mountain forests were turned into an industrial site by the FAA and the Bedford Air Force Station. True, some of this devastation has been cleared away, but the mountain is never going to be quite the same again. As a result of this early experience, I've worked all my adult life to see that this does not happen again to Virginia's mountain treasures. The only way to ensure the integrity of our finest treasures is to place them in the National Wilderness Preservation System.
Since I moved to the Shenandoah Valley 20 years ago, I've discovered many areas in the National Forest that have become favorites. I especially like the trails that go along high mountain ridges, like Shenandoah Mountain Trail from the Confederate breastworks to the north. I like this particular trail because you can see so far into the beautiful rolling mountains of West Virginia, and you can also see a vast expanse of undeveloped forest in Virginia. Sometimes when you round a turn, you can see the Shenandoah Valley far below, and even as far as the Blue Ridge Mountains to the east on a clear day. Even if I've had stress or difficulty in my life, I find that a hike in the mountains restores me and helps me gain some perspective. I go back home at the end of the day tired, but with wonderful memories that stay with me.
Even when we're not aware of them, our national forests are central to our lives. Mountain vistas enrich the daily activities of people in towns and cities across the state. Mature, unspoiled forests are our true common wealth, where Virginians and visitors alike can renew and restore their spirits, enjoying outdoor activities such as kayaking, mountain biking, and horseback riding.
My name is Ken Dubell. My perspective of the value of our Virginia mountain treasures is a little different than most. I generally view them from the water. Being on and sometimes in the water in a canoe or kayak gives me an up-close and personal view of the water quality in a stream. A stream which drains of forested areas, such as one of our Virginia mountain treasures, generally has better water quality. One vivid memory for me on the dry river in Rockingham County happened when standing chest deep in the water below a rapid. Looking down, I noted the water was so clear I could count the grains of sand swirling around my toes. It seems like such a simple thing, but I was struck profoundly by the notion, hey, this is what Mother Nature intended. What a gift, pristine wild areas. As population pressures continue to rise, we need to be especially vigilant in protecting what we have.
There are many reasons why Virginia Mountain Treasures are a valuable resource. But for me, one of the most important reasons has to do with their economic value. I am the business manager for a small outdoor retail shop located in the town of Damascus, Virginia. Damascus has established a reasonably vibrant economy based around tourism. 90% of our income comes from tourists who visit our area. These tourists do not come to town because of what is available in the town. They come because of our proximity to Virginia's mountain treasures. They come because we provide a gateway to a valued resource. Our customers value the solitude, remoteness, and the natural and scenic beauty of the mountain treasures. We have developed such a reputation for providing that experience that national publications like Backpacker Magazine and the Wall Street Journal have highlighted adventures in our area as the best in the Appalachians. The outdoor recreation retail industry is also important throughout the southeastern United States. Outdoor recreation generates $51.3 billion in sales annually in our region and supports nearly 800,000 jobs, more jobs than in any of the other regions in the U.S. Nationally, the outdoor recreation retail industry generates $289 billion, exceeding the sales volume of pharmaceutical and medicine manufacturing, automobile and light truck manufacturing, and the motion picture and video industry. We think it is in our economic self-interest to secure the present and future integrity of the remaining best places.
In fact, our very lives depend on our forests. The Appalachian Mountains comb the clouds for rain, forming the pristine headwaters of key watersheds. Intact forests filter clean drinking water for animals and humans downstream. Mature forests are also the lungs of the earth, inhaling harmful greenhouse gases that contribute to the ongoing threat of climate change and exhaling life-giving oxygen. What is more, over 40 federally designated threatened or endangered species rely on Virginia's national forests for survival, depending on the safety and diversity of native woodlands and their downstream watersheds for food, water, and shelter. In a world where an average 200 species a day go extinct, undisturbed forests are crucial genetic reservoirs for maintaining the biodiversity essential to healthy ecosystems. They provide a much-needed refuge for vulnerable migrating songbirds and butterflies and many other wild creatures. Virginia's amazing variety of salamanders, northern flying squirrels, rare bats, river otters, turtles, and deep forest songbirds like the hooded warbler and the ovenbird, along with thousands of other species, make their permanent homes in our rich national forest lands.
I'm Hugh Irwin, conservation planner and ecologist with the Southern Appalachian Forest Coalition. Biodiversity can't be explained fully in a classroom. To truly understand biodiversity, you have to experience it. And one good way to deepen your understanding is to visit a Virginia Mountain Treasure area near your home. You'll find that even just 1 square foot of intact forest contains an astounding number and variety of plants, animals, fungi, and all interconnected in a web of life. You start to glimpse a bit of the mysterious and sacred that makes protection of this rich biodiversity so important. For example, the Clinch, Holston, and Powell rivers are renowned habitat for rare freshwater mussels, all downstream from Virginia's mountain treasures. The Mount Rogers High Country, Shenandoah Mountain, and the Peaks of Otter area provide habitat for fragile, unique species such as the Weller's salamander, Yanalasi salamander, cow knob salamander, and the Peaks of Otter salamander. and the White Top Mountain is home to 16 species of salamanders, the greatest level of salamander biodiversity for any area of this size on Earth. You can experience biodiversity by paying close attention to the intricate tapestry of plants, animals, birds, reptiles, and amphibians that share our forest. Our mountain treasures are vital reservoirs of great biological diversity. All provide rich habitat that make life possible for denizens as diverse as black bear, wild turkey, turtles, wildflowers, insects, fungi, lichen, and mushrooms, as well as for many rare and endangered species. The more you stop to look and listen, the more you hear and see, the more you grow to love and want to protect these lands.
The George Washington and Jefferson National Forests are also essential habitat for wild trout, who flourish in Virginia's undisturbed forested watersheds, where old trees tumble into streams to form the clear, cool, natural pools trout need to grow and thrive. With over 1,600 miles of cold water streams, Virginia has more native brook trout streams than all other southeastern states combined.
I grew up watching birds in Virginia, and that early experience led me to a career as a professional biologist. Virginia is a great place to study and watch birds, in part due to its varied regions, from the eastern shore to the Allegheny Mountains. And the same is true on a smaller scale because most bird species key in very closely to their preferred habitats. Young forests and clearings are homes to chestnut-sided warblers, while other species like scarlet tanagers, cerulean warblers, and red-eyed vireos prefer the deep woods, now less common in Virginia's mountains. My own research has demonstrated the value of relatively undisturbed areas of the National Forest to the breeding of Acadian flycatchers. I strongly support the protection of roadless areas as a way of protecting some of the last big tracts of forests and of the species of birds that depend on them. Many of Virginia's bird species, especially those that migrate to the tropics, have undergone serious declines in my lifetime. While these species face many threats during migration, they also face serious problems on their breeding grounds in eastern forests. Numerous studies have documented reduced breeding success in forests fragmented by agricultural lands, urban areas, and roads. Wilderness legislation offers key protection from these threats by maintaining large areas of unbroken, roadless forests.
As the owner of a bring-your-own-horse riding camp, I depend on the forest for part of my livelihood. I appreciate the experience of hearing my campers share their enthusiasm and love for my own mountain treasures, Little, Wilson, and Dry Run Wilderness areas, and know that their visits to these places have changed them somehow for the better. Sometimes there are children riding with us, fresh and inquisitive, seeing the biology and geology of an area for the first time and wanting to know more about it. That's a great way for them to get interested in getting an education. I want protection for the National Forest for other reasons as well. I'm concerned about climate change. Forests contribute mightily to mitigating some of the effects of climate change by sequestering carbon, and I want to be sure that we're all supplied with clean drinking water in the future, pollution-free water that only intact and protected forests can provide.
My name is Norris Campbell. I live in the Craigville area. I'm 58 years old. I've lived here all my life. I started hunting when I was about 21, started coon hunting. I really enjoy my dogs and getting in on like Big North Mountain, a whole lot of acres there that you could walk all night on and listen to the dogs run in tree. And while you're walking along going to the dogs, you can look at the big trees and just think to yourself how many years that tree's been there without anybody disturbing it.
Thanks to dedicated citizens who took decisive action decades ago, today we are blessed with one of the largest blocks of public land in the entire Appalachian Range, right here in Virginia. In fact, there are more acres of roadless national forests in Virginia than in any other state east of the Mississippi River. The first lands for the future George Washington and Jefferson National Forests were acquired in 1913 during an era of widespread clear-cutting across the southern Appalachians, called the lands nobody wanted. many of the areas that are now national forests were cut over and denuded or inaccessible. Forest defenders of the early 20th century witnessed the ravages of industrial clear-cutting and felt a system of national forests was the best way to protect the land they loved. They worked hard to establish federally protected areas, trusting that future generations would uphold their original vision of cherishing and protecting our rapidly diminishing wildlands. Today, these initial tracts form the core of national forest holdings, and nestled within the forests, our precious mountain treasures. Initially, these lands were set aside to reduce the threat and severity of flooding, and in the early days of the national forests, the Forest Service mission was stewardship, not timber production. However, soon timber production began to take a much larger role. By the time World War II was over, the Forest Service had moved to industrial logging, clear-cutting, and other destructive even-aged logging on a large scale. The old ethic of stewardship fell away, and multinational timber corporations began to wield more influence on the agency than the native Virginians who lived among and loved their common forest lands.
Way back in the mountains on the high knob by the ridge, Grandpa built our cabin where we lived for 40 years. Spent a happy childhood beneath the hardwood trees. I didn't know what I had then was all I'd ever need. Mountain laurels blooming, it was early in the spring. Looking out my window on a sea of endless green. Rich men from the city came to buy our land today. It took 200 years to grow, but it's gone in 30 days. Mudslides down the mountain, there's no way to stop the flood. Hills without their timbers, like a man without his blood. Scars upon the land, those wounds will never heal. But a greedy man will never get his fill.
Today, extractive development continues to play a large role in our national forests, threatening many unspoiled areas and chipping away at the integrity of our wildlands. Since 1993, the Forest Service has logged over 40,000 acres of Virginia's national forests. When a forest is logged, it loses more than trees. The entire ecosystem is disrupted, displacing or destroying plants, animals, birds, fish, amphibians, and reptiles. Logging our national forests simply doesn't make economic sense. Less than 2% of Virginia's timber comes from national forest land.
Mudslides down the mountain, there's no way to stop the flood. Hills without their timbers, like a man without his blood.
The cost of logging the remote, rugged areas actually exceed timber receipts, and scarred, treeless vistas rob communities of income from tourists drawn by Virginia's natural beauty.
I hope someday they know the way I feel.
Indeed, studies show that counties that embrace wilderness protection can expect higher employment, greater income growth, and broader economic diversity than counties that focus on resource extraction and little wildland protection. Despite widespread protest, the Forest Service continues to log irreplaceable old-growth sites, some with trees over 150 years old, such as the beautiful Hoover Creek site in Allegheny County, where just 10 years ago, magnificent centuries-old trees were tragically lost to chainsaws. Sites like these are especially important for maintaining diverse wildlife populations, and they remain our last best hope for preserving a reminder of the former glory that once were the majestic Appalachian forests.
When we talk about old growth, it's not the size of individual trees that counts, but the age of the forest community. Old growth doesn't necessarily mean old trees, but an old forest, one that hasn't suffered any widespread leveling catastrophes in centuries. As a general rule of thumb, half of the trees should be at least half as old as they're likely to get, a complex and variable figure highly dependent on site. This gives the canopy time to become nicked by storms and winds, droughts and fires, floods and insect infestations, which in the east generally kill a small number of trees at a time. Like the sporadic twinkling of lightning bugs against a summer night, but on a longer time scale, these sudden bursts of light form a changing pattern across the forest. Wildflowers, shrubs, and subdominant trees fill the sunny spaces, resulting in a layered canopy of trees of all ages. Because of this structural complexity, wildlife in old forests have a far greater array of habitats as well as food. One of the most crucial habitat components is standing and downed deadwood. Large, downed logs harbor the small mammals that eat and disperse a group of fungi, the mycorrhizae, that grow around root tips and help trees take up nutrients. Young trees fail to thrive without these fungi and often die. Downed logs remain damp enough through droughts to serve as refuges for amphibians, which are crucial to the food chain. In late fall, black bears look for trees big and old enough to have hollow spaces for denning 50 feet up or higher, accommodations that take centuries to produce. Stream dams made of trunks and large fallen branches form pools for fish and catch nutrients that would otherwise pass through, carried away by rushing water. Soil is so shielded from erosion by layers of fallen leaves and twigs that streams draining ancient woods are among the purest waters ever tested.
Over 4,289 miles of Forest Service, local, state, and federal roads pass through Virginia's national forests. Nationwide, there are more miles of logging roads in our national forests than in the entire interstate highway system. Road building fragments habitat, pollutes streams, and provides access for harmful activities. Still, new roads continue to be built here. 75% of the George Washington and 72% of the Jefferson National Forest is classified as available for energy development and mineral extraction. Natural gas and other types of development bring a vast network of pipelines, wells, and roads to pristine areas, compromising and or destroying delicate habitat.
Putting together the Virginia's Mountain Treasures book for the Jefferson National Forest was a joy. It was exciting and it was fun. I worked collaboratively with so many people: Ernie Dickerman, who was one of the fathers of the Federal Wilderness Act, Sherman Bamford, Steve Critchbaum, Mike Jones, Bob Mueller, Robert Hunsaker. I went camping and hiking and exploring with those people who know every nook and cranny. It was a collaborative process that led to this wonderful book and to preserving so many of our Virginia areas. Our wilderness areas are our legacy to the future, and if we don't protect them now, they will be gone. I urge everybody to do what you can, get behind these wilderness areas and say, preserve these areas for the future.
Virginia's mountain treasures give us so very much. The least we can do is give back by making sure that they remain safe from harm. It takes the help of everyone who cares about our vanishing wild places to keep these areas protected for generations to come. Our beloved mountain treasures deserve to be protected from logging, road construction, and other forms of exploitative development. Because each Virginia mountain treasure is unique, there is no one-size-fits-all approach to ensuring that they remain intact and undisturbed. Many of our unprotected treasures are worthy of strong federal protection, including National Scenic Area, Wild and Scenic River, Wilderness, and other designations which allow a wide range of non-motorized use.
These beautiful places have inspired me to work for their protection. For more than 2 decades, I've joined with others to try to get some of the most special areas permanently protected. If we're successful, what a great legacy our generation would be leaving.
Of course, there are many very good reasons to preserve our wild areas: economic, environmental, medicinal. But once you've experienced the rich biodiversity of these areas, you won't need any more convincing in your head. You'll know in your heart why it is crucial to do everything we can to preserve our Virginia mountain treasures.
How can you help? Get to know and love a mountain treasure near you. Adopt a Virginia Mountain Treasure and partner with others in the Adopt a Mountain Treasure program. Share your experience of these special areas with neighbors, public officials, and others. Write personal comments to agencies and legislators. Report any harmful activity taking place in our national forests. Support organizations dedicated to defending our forests. Virginia's Mountain Treasures, ideal retreats for experiencing the wonders of nature, safe havens for a rich diversity of plants, animals, and birds, vital refuges in an increasingly compromised landscape. Virginia's Mountain Treasures, connecting us to the few wild places we have left to enjoy, to love, and to protect.